first of all, they pick me. They show up in your life and they say they pick me. It's one day I'm just thinking about something and 5 people call me and tell me that the bony lady, talking about the bony lady or something like that, or Grandma from Loa from Voodoo that came up like 3 times in 1 week. So sometimes they just pick me, and sometimes they pick me for a short time. But I'm very careful not to mix. You can feel the energy. You can start thinking about this one and then thinking about this one, and sometimes the energy collides. I try not to mix pantheons within the same thing. I try to work with 1 or 2 folks, but I can't say I'm not mixing pantheons when I work with La Madama, although she's not necessarily a pantheon, and then like Grambois or one of the Orishas or Bridget, because they just kind of show up and they say they want to work with me and they're going to help me with this situation. I have found, I started working with Archangel energy real specifically, and I find that when I go up to that level of working with Archangel energy, everybody works with them.
Well, of course they do, because they are ancient beings of air and fire.
Right.
Okay? So, and a lot of people think that angels are Christian entities, but they're not.
No, that's just the latest name
and
for them.
Angels will help anybody.
Yep.
And so they're like neutral territory.
Yep. And what I think, and this is just a newer exploration for me as I'm exploring. I'm always checking into something new. Because I get bored. And with the archangels, what I find is this is their latest name. The Malachi, and back further and further and further. And you can trace this whole group going back, predating really any of the pantheons, anyway. So as I was working with them and prepping to teach an archangel class, what I discovered, and then I'm working with my regular deities that I work with, and really I just call them my divine allies. All of them, from archangels on out, because there's so many different names. They're kind of all the same stuff, but then they're infused with the cultural influences. So, if this culture, like you said, the Aztecs and the Catholics, not so much. But yeah, I found it. I will step out of, and I've stepped out of ritual when I found what folks were doing, or I'm not the person in charge. We're gonna channel Isis in all of her incarnations. I'm like, yeah. It's gonna take a while. Yeah.
Well, my question revolves around the same thing with regards to the deity choosing you. Have you ever, or have you experienced a situation where one deity will bring in another aspect? In other words, in my situation, it's moving from Diana to Hecate.
Yeah. I think deities work with you for as long as they want to, and then yes, sometimes turn you over to somebody else. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And why wouldn't they?
Right.
In the Orisha tradition in Santeria, they will give their children to each other. So you think sometimes you have a head reading, and let's say you're going to go through initiation, you have your head ride beforehand, and they say you're a child of Oshun. Well, Oshun tends to give her children away to other people, and then so right before your initiation, you get another reading and say, oh no, Oshun just gave you to Yemaya, and you're like, what? So, but I've also been handed off for different things, like Grambois stepped into my life. Because I work with Bridget, I work with Ella Block quite a bit. I work with a lot of different folks, and they literally said, no, you need to do this. Something I didn't want to do, something that was going to be a lot more effort than I thought I was going to get out of it, but they wanted me to work with Grambois for a little bit. And then when he was done, he was done. And what's interesting is that the aspect that was brought in the class that I attended was not the aspect that I was going to work with. And I also think that deities have so many different faces to them that you may be taught Hecate is this, but then you're going to find when you start building that relationship how different she is.
You know, one of the things that happened, Christy Madden and I wrote a book together called Dancing with the Goddess Incarnate, and it's out of print now. But I was, you know, I'm working with these different goddesses, you know, as I'm writing my parts of the book. And I discovered things about these goddesses that are not your traditional things. Mm-hmm. You know, at one point I was working with Kuan Yin, and you know, who is the goddess of compassion and mercy. Well, you know what? She doesn't take any prisoners though. She doesn't have any patience for bullshit. And I was amazed at that. It was like, you know, but you're supposed to be the goddess of compassion and mercy. You know, what the hell? And it's like, yeah, but you know what? I don't deal well with hammering. You know, and you are going to do this and this and this. This is where you need to go. And if you're not going to do that, I'm done with you. You know, this only stretches so far. And I thought, good, like that, you know. And so I think that when you work with different, I think they kind of hand you off. It's kind of like having a teacher who goes, okay, now, you know, you did your third grade studies, you know, really great. So now I'm going to take you by the hand. We're going to lead you to the fourth grade room here. I think it's kind of that sort of thing. You know, because now this particular entity can help you better than I, because now you have this lesson to learn.
And one of my spirit guides who is akin to Lama Dama, she is the one who threw me under the bus. I mean, threw me at studying the archangels. Okay. And she's like, you have to do this now. Before you can go further in this, you have to go do this now. Which was fascinating. A fascinating lesson in clearing energy too fast from you.
You know, the archangel thing was really interesting. I grew up Catholic, and I didn't really think much about working with the angels or any of that really. And so I'm writing Everyday Sun Magic. And so I do a thing on the angels because it was important, because they're creatures of air and fire and so on and so forth. Well, one of the things I did, as I told you, my sister used to be in charge of religious education with the San Antonio Diocese, so I needed some information from their archives. And so I would call my sister and I go, okay, Marianne, I need blah, 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 blah. You know, one of the things was a papal edict that I needed for something. And so I managed to get my hands on, and she did not give it to me, but I managed to get my hands on the exorcism ritual for the Catholic Church. Okay? And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to witch this up. And we're going to do a home protection ritual out of this. And I did. And one of the things I did was I used the archangel seals. So, it's all well and fine and good until Llewellyn gets this manuscript, and they're giving me a ration of shit about these archangel seals. And they want to know where they came from, and they aren't sure that they're public domain and I can use them. I said, oh yes, they can, because
a couple thousand years old.
You know, because this came from the Grimoire d'Armadale, which is housed in the arsenal in Paris, and blah, 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 blah. And they went, yes, but who published it? I said, it was not published, it was distributed. And they went, but who published it? And I went, no, you don't understand. It was hand copied and distributed. I said, now, Weiser just printed it because of the public domain, and they could. But I can use these. So there was a big hoop to do about it. So now I'm trying, yes.
Did you copyright it yourself?
No. Well, Everyday Sun Magic is copyrighted, and we're getting to that. But the hassle was that they would not let me use these because I couldn't prove their distribution, all this kind of crap, and now I'm tired. So I dig around on the internet, and I find this guy in Round Rock, Texas, this artist, who is doing archangel seals, and they're these seals, but he is actually drawing the figures of the archangels in the middle of them. And he's finished 3 of them. And the only one left is Uriel, and I contacted him. And his artwork's fabulous. And I said, honey, I'm writing this book. I need this, blah, 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 blah. I would like permission to use these in the book. Can we work something out? And he said, Dorothy, that would be fine. He said, I'll let you have them, you know, as long as I've got the right to use them thereafter. He said, that would be great. He said, except that I I'm not going to be done with Uriel this year. And I said, but I have to have Uriel. And he said, but Dorothy, I can't do this, in time for your manuscript deadline. And I went, okay. So now I'm undone. I have to go to Omaha for an appearance. And the woman's breathing down my neck. I can't get this fixed. And I finally get pissed off. And I scream, fuck it. Uriel, fix it. And I stomp out the door. I start hacking. I go to Omaha. So, appearances go off just fine. It's time for me to go home. I get to the airport. I met a bunch of very strange things that were going on that day. I go to the airport. I've got cutoffs and flip-flops and a tank top and no makeup. And some guy at TSA says, hey, you're Dorothy Morrison, aren't you? I mean, I look like the ass in the hard times. And not only that, I remarried. And so my last name is legally no longer Morrison. So, and I thought, gosh, this is very strange, that he recognizes me. And I said, yeah. And he says, okay, well, I got this problem, but you can fix it. And I went, okay. And he said, I was supposed to, he said, you just did a thing at Next Millennium. And I said, yes. And he said, I was supposed to take my wife, but so-and-so called in sick and I had to work and we only had one car. And so she didn't get to go and see you and blah, blah, blah. So if you could just put your autograph on a piece of paper, she'd probably love me again. Can you do that? And I went, yeah, baby, I can do that. And so I did. And he said, are you ready to go to your gate? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. So he grabs my carry-on, and this was almost scary. He takes me through security, and he doesn't put my bag on the little conveyor belt. He says, she's fine. Now, you know what? What if I wasn't fine? I'm a native Texan. What if I had my 357 in that carry-on, okay? So, anyway, but I get to the gate, and I've got time to kill. And so I go in the little Hudson bookseller in there. And so I happen to be a Philippa Gregory fan, and she writes historical novels. So there's this book called The Queen's Fool, and it was a brand new book at the time. And so I grab it off the shelf, I pay for it, I'm sitting there reading. So this book opens up where, and I know I'm long-winded, but I'm getting to the point, folks, I really am. This is still about the archangels. The book opens up, and this kid is sweeping her dad's storefront. He's a bookseller. And this is ancient England, and this is where all the Jews are in danger of being found out and so on and so forth, and for heretics. And so this chariot is coming up the road, and there's this old man and this young man in the chariot, and there's this guy in the back, and the light has hit him, there's a glare. She can't see who he is, but they pull up in front of the shop, and they want to see her father, and so she says, okay. And she goes and she gets 3 stools, and she sits them down. She goes and gets her father. Father comes out. And he says, so-and-so, why did you get 3 stools? She says, well, there was a 3rd gentleman. And so the old man says, a 3rd gentleman? She says, well, yes, he was in the chariot with you. He says, what did he look like? She says, I don't know. There was a glare on him I couldn't see. The sun was shining on him. The one that was no longer there was Uriel the Archangel. So at this point, and the old man was John D. So at this point, I know that everything is resolved with the Archangel seals and alone. I have no idea how, but Uriel fixed it, and I knew it. And this was how it came from a novel. Can you imagine? When I get home, everything's resolved. I can use the damn seals. And then they went, oops, sorry, it's all good now. So sometimes you don't, when you're working with entities like angels or archangels, it doesn't take necessarily all this formal stuff. And people seem to think that when you're working with deity, it has to be formal and so on and so forth. I think they feel like that formal mess is boring. Yeah. And I'm sure that they're up there somewhere going, can you just fucking get on with it? Just tell me what you want, and let's see if I can fix it. Either I will or I won't, but let's cut the crap,